we have that freedom to do it. And that's kind of what keeps us when you get frustrated during this time, like, oh no, we're having, latency issues or buffering issues coming on. But at the same time, some of those things we're doing, we can do it. And we're pioneers.
We have to be careful whenever we say the word crash, because
I avoid that one.
That is something that we may have all experienced at some point in time. But I want to come to that a little bit and talk about successes that you've had. And some of them may be as a result of COVID, but that's going to be my next question. Harmon, how about the WHGE-LP? What have been some of the challenges with this pandemic in terms of your community volunteers, in terms of your funding for your station?
Well, let me get to funding. That seems to be at the top of our list in terms of needs, and perhaps some of my colleagues who are on this panel. We initiated in the fall of last year a monthly event. We called it Third Thursdays, and it was held at a Black-owned restaurant, and it was really a fundraiser for our organization, but we also used it as a vehicle or platform to honor certain individuals in the community. Well, our last one was in February, and we haven't been able to sponsor anything like that since. So COVID has impacted our ability to raise monies through the main source that we had established, and that was a community-wide fundraiser and tribute to certain leaders in the community. We also lost some of our hosts who felt uncomfortable about coming out. Thanks to Paul Bain and Peter of Prometheus, we were able to get a microphone with a 25-foot cord on it. So using that, we were able to maintain at least social distance for a guest, and it will, made people feel a little bit more comfortable.
So I want to remind everybody that we're listening and watching the Community Radio Regional Roundtable on two platforms, PhillyCAM WPPM 106.5 and PhillyCAM Community Media. So Daniel, how about you? How has your station had to adjust in terms of volunteers and funding due to the pandemic?
So when funding, in the terms of funding, we usually have sponsorships, but they're usually from local businesses trying to support our local radio station. And when the pandemic hit, these businesses were also struggling. So it wasn't wise, or it was really uncomfortable for us to go out and ask for a sponsorship when such businesses couldn't sometimes meet for their own perspective. As far as programming, the majority of our programs are volunteers, that people come out to our radio station and do their own programs. At the start of the pandemic, we actually closed down the radio station, and we were only playing music at the meantime. So one of my challenges was to find new ways of programming, and I reached out to a few radio stations, and fortunately, two of them, Radio Bilingüe and Central FM, were kind enough to work with Radio CATA, and we're now able to share their weekday episodes on our radio station. And then I also learned how to remote broadcast, and that led the opportunity of a few people to come back to the radio and do their programs remotely.
Great. Keyssh, you sort of had a different challenge. You're working with youth, and I'm not sure whether there were, parents were sort of unwilling to let some of these kids work with the Youth Media Project. Talk about how you had to adjust to the pandemic.
Well, I know PhillyCAM had ended up shutting down and they actually just reopened with limited capacity and percussionists. But the way that we did it was we ended up moving everything online. So we would live stream on our Facebook, live on PhillyCAM's Facebook, and we would use their platform. The youth radio show would use PhillyCAM's Facebook, and also stream through the radio. So the way that we just adjusted was just turning everything back online. There wasn't really, I don't know really behind the scenes, if I'm being honest, but the way that we adjusted is online.
Can I double dip?
Please.
Okay. Didn't think of that until I heard some of the comments from our panelists. But one of the impacts it had, a direct impact, was on our sports show. We were presenting a weekly sports show, Eddie J's Sports Zone. Well, sports came to a screeching halt, and he didn't have anything to report about. So we kind of lost that program. We've initiated another sports program about 2 weeks ago, but that was one direct consequence of COVID. And the other thing I want to add to my comments is that we had to really go searching for money. Since we weren't able to generate it on our own, we had to end up writing proposals to foundations and other groups that were making small, but it was a big help, small grants available. And we wrote these proposals and kept our fingers crossed. And we were fortunate enough to get some funded, and we just had to make do with what we could get.
One of the things that I love about community radio, community public access television, is that there are so many good stories coming out of each of our respective TV, or in this instance, our radio station. So I'd like to ask you if you could tell me a story or a couple stories about something that really struck you as a real success, perhaps something, a moment that you knew that you were really reaching your community. I'm guessing you all have stories like that. So let's go. Daniel, how about you? Do you have like success stories that you'd like to share with us about the work that you're doing in your community?
Yes, when it comes with the community, since CATA focuses on the immigrant community, when the pandemic hit, some people had economic relief, but the immigrant community didn't really receive any much help. So what CATA did, we asked for grants in order to have an economic relief so we can provide it to our community. And then we also asked for donations for people who are generous enough to donate, and we can help other families. And when we did that, the support that people came out with was just pretty enormous. Like, I was surprised by the amount of people who actually came out and wanted to support our community. So that was really, really special to see.
Tom, how about you? And this could be pre-COVID too. Something that happened at your radio station where you just knew that you were making an impact on your community.
Oh, I mean, there's a lot of them. So trying to pick one that happens most recently. I'll do one. We're always talking about news and information. I'm going to kind of go to a different aspect, and that's something that kind of hit me just most recently. We have a program on that does live radio theater, and it's live. They use scripts, so all the actors are now remote. So it's kind of interesting to have them kind of doing their voices remotely, not in the same room, but doing it live. But at the end of one of the programs, one of the actresses made a statement that, thank you so much for giving us this platform, because stage is not happening right now. We're not having an opportunity to perform in front of an audience. And you are providing this live response. We're not just reading a script that's being pre-produced like we've done in other things, but we actually have an audience right now that we know is tuning in. And it was very emotional, and how she, she was breaking up when she was talking about it. You could feel it was genuine and real. I kind of got a little weepy myself hearing her talk about it. So that's really where you start to see, especially this time, that our life, our local music show, a lot of the arts that is not having a chance to be seen or heard, we have a chance at least, hey, that's still happening, it's alive, in addition to the other things. But, there's numerous news shows as well, but that's when it just kind of hit, and that's kind of out of the normal.
Harmon, how about you? Do you have a story to share about something that happened at the radio station where you just had, that encapsulated the fact that community media is powerful and it's engaging the community, and it could be something that happened pre-COVID?
Well, a couple of things come to mind, and I'll be very brief. I'll preface it by saying we see our radio station as being more than just a radio station. So we do all kinds of stuff. And because I'm new at it and I don't have the kind of experience that tells me, well, you shouldn't be doing that. That's not what radio stations do. So we're just outside of the box. And one of the things we did during Black History Month was to pay tribute to two pioneers of Black radio here in Wilmington, the first DJ and the second DJ. The first one has passed on, but the second one is still with us. He's in his 90s. He was able to attend the tribute, and we asked City Council if they would issue a resolution in his honor. And he went to City Hall. I have a copy of the resolution in front of me. It was a resolution signed by all of the City Council members, and it was a good feeling. He felt good about it. It was the first time he'd ever been recognized, and his family felt good about it, and the community came out. That's one thing. The second thing, and I'll make this one a little briefer, and it was in partial response to the COVID virus situation. We collaborate with an organization called Food Not Bombs. And on a small patio that we erected in the back of our studio, every week we distribute clothing and food to people. We give them hand sanitizers, like so, masks, like so. Oh, you all know what a mask looks like. But both of those were well received. People come out, they get fresh vegetables and fruit, and canned goods and clothing. And a local church has joined our effort. So it's gotten a little bigger, but people look forward to it. It's a weekly food and clothing giveaway.
Keyssh, how about you? It could be something that happened before COVID, something where a story that you could share where, as a teacher of students, it's sometimes I feel like it's that light bulb moment where you just see like, hey, they're really getting this.
Yeah. So there's actually two, but the first one is we got to celebrate moves. I think it was 20 years anniversary from everything, and we actually got Pam Africa to come on to talk and to do an interview with us, and that was like just big because at first we didn't think that we was going to get it, but we got to celebrate moving. Just overall that show was like felt extremely important, and it didn't feel possible when we first doing it or just had the idea, but to be able to do that felt just amazing. And then there's usually a show that we put on that is actually in person. That's called like the Live Culture Festival, where we have different organizations and videos, and this everything comes together like an end of the year celebration for the show. So we ended up having to switch online, and although the show wasn't in person, we ended up connecting with people, and just the show still went on regardless. So it just felt like a really good moment and accomplishment to know that although we weren't in person physically, everything still happened, and still could happen. And we realized that although we felt like moving online at first was impossible and just felt like out of this world, as far as the ability, when we was able to achieve moving everything online, it felt really good because we now know we have like a different platform that we can now use. So that was just big. Having everybody still come together, different organizations, different young people sending in videos and everything, and even celebrating graduates. So yeah, that was definitely a story. Yes.
I want to remind everybody that we're listening to the Community Radio Regional Roundtable on two platforms, WPPM 106.5 FM and PhillyCAM TV. I mentioned before, and I'm sure you all definitely know this, there is an election in 2 weeks. I'm kind of curious at how your station will your programming change or adjust after the election, and if so, how? Tom, we'll start with you.
I'm not sure if the actual programming itself will change. I'm sure it will generate topics of conversation. We'll be probably looking for various guests to analyze and discuss how that impacts our community directly. The aftermath, some of the healing that might be taking place that is needed, goes back to the idea of our station being one that provides information and comfort as well. So trying to strike that balance after the election is something we definitely, are looking to do. But in terms of changing any kind of programming, I don't see that actually happening. No programming that we have on now was designed specifically for the election. And so I don't see anything kind of happening afterwards. There could be, something could change. We've seen things change within the days as things go on. So, I never say never with what can happen. We'll just, we kind of run through the thing, kind of going back to, what Harmon had said earlier, even though you haven't been, in radio before or anything, we always are kind of a little bit, one of the joys of is, flying by the seat of our pants is kind of thing that kind of makes it fun.
Thank you.
Harmon, will anything change in 2 weeks on WHGE?
Well, it all depends. It depends on who wins the city council presidency. In Wilmington, there's the overwhelming majority party are Democrats, okay? And one of the candidates for city council president came on our political power hour. And he was so impressed with our small station that he said, more people need to know about this. And I'm going to help get the word out. Well, this was during the primary. He won the primary, and he will be up for presidency on November the 3rd. Now, if he wins, I'm sure that one of the sequels will be a weekly or bi-weekly program featuring news about city council in Wilmington, what legislation they're considering, what it means to the average person, when it's going to be voted on, all kinds of stuff like that. So I'm really, I think we have a bright future in that regard.
Daniel, how about at Radio CATA? Will anything change with how you're addressing the community after the election?
I think I'm in the same boat as Tom. Most of our programs will change except for CATA's radio show. I'm sure there will be a lot of questions and concerns within our community of what's going to happen or what changes will occur. So more than likely we'll be having like a little brainstorm session of what topics to talk about within the CATA radio show. But the rest of the art program, I think it will be the same.
Keyssh, how about, is this something that you'll be addressing with the youth in the youth media, with your youth media program?
Well, we always stick to social justice topics, so that isn't like nothing being changed, because regardless of the season, social justice like issues, whether that's gentrification, LGBTQ rights, you name it, food insecurity, we've been talking about it before. Like, everything has gone down, so I don't think talking about social justice is going to change. Although, I feel like there are bigger issues like that are starting to come up, especially when knowing that there's different organizations that's taking lead and stuff like that. So I feel like that's something that might be talked about. But yeah, I feel like our radio so specific carousel has always talked about like current issues. So I don't think anything like that is gonna change. So yeah.
Well, you kind of answered a little bit my next question. I wanted to ask each one of our panelists, how is your station encouraging your audiences to engage in civic participation? I think you've all kind of addressed this to a certain extent, but I'm going to ask that question directly. And Harmon, we'll start with you. I think you've already suggested ways that your station is engaging or encouraging your audience to engage in civic participation. Maybe you can elaborate on that a little bit.
Well, I'll share just an idea or two that we've adopted. One is that for the food giveaway, there's a motto: bring what you can and take what you need. So we're encouraging people to not only come with their bags and seeking help from us, but also to realize that they have a role to play in terms of helping others. There's food that they might have at home that, you know, they don't like, that was given to them that they can't use, clothing that they may have grown out of, toys that they don't have kids to play with anymore. So we want folks to realize, you know, that they can be not only the partakers, but the givers. That's one thing. We struggle with trying to get people to realize the station is here to be used by the community. So if you have an event, for example, that you were something wholesome, you know, not something that's unseemly, but you can come on. You can either tell us or you can come on yourself. We've got we find that sometimes people are afraid. You know, they haven't done it before, and we try to let them know, hey, listen, it's just come and talk just like you would from your own living room. So more and more people are coming by. They are sharing information about events that their church or social club is sponsoring, and I think that's a good thing. We were able to involve some of the people in the voter registration, and with these elections coming up, we have been able to try to, and we're probably not supposed to do this, but we have been a conduit so that people, if they want to donate, can contact the party or the politicians that they wish to support.
Tom, how does G-Town Radio engage your or reach out to your audience to try to foster civic engagement?
Well, a lot of it is through the various programs we have. I mean, we have shows that are very specific to like the climate change issues, racial justice, LGBTQ issues, and all of those shows usually will have guests at some point talking about ways to get involved. And just the various organizations in the area that are doing things, we try to give people a voice on our airwaves and various shows. If someone were to contact the station, we can pipeline them into a show that they can appear on. We have shows like our morning show that came out of COVID, the Northwest Check-In that's on Fridays at 7, that is sort of, we can always find a way to get that voice heard and ultimately engage our listenership on ways that you too can contribute to the community, and even, becoming active in the radio station in some way, be it from a producer aspect to helping create content to doing, all the stuff that goes into a volunteer organization. It's there's many ways to get involved.
Daniel, how about Radio CATA? You're muted.
Sorry about that. So within our programs, we always try to encourage people to come out and support in whatever they can, whether it be supporting our radio station and coming out and, trying to do their own program, or informing them things they can do to help out their own community. Or when we do episodes on climate change, we inform people on ways they could contribute to the environment. So we have many topics we talk about within Radio CATA. And I feel as time passes, especially now, we're seeing the results a little bit more. And I'm seeing more people reaching out to us and asking what ways they can also join and help out.
So maybe as an extension of that question, I'm kind of curious, how does each of your radio stations measure your impact? At a traditional radio station, it's about ratings. Do each of your radio stations have a way that you measure that the impact that you're having in your community, in terms of because we all need to be sustainable, each of our radio stations. So again, this may be something that you've kind of answered before, but I'll ask that question very specifically. Tom, how about G-Town Radio?
That's the old question of how do you measure your listenership? We don't have a specific means. It's really the old-fashioned, I like what you're doing, high five. And you hear it through the community, or just the simple fact you say, hey, I'm with G-Town Radio, or, I heard about you. The fact that people know who you are when you say, hi, I'm with the radio station, they know who that radio station is, and they know what it is. They may not necessarily be avid listeners, but they know we exist. So the simple fact that they know who we are and exist, and you're not getting that questionable look like, who are you, is right now, that's probably the most important way of measurement, because that's face to face and it's real people.
Harmon, and I have to say, unfortunately, we're coming close to the end of our hour. So I'm just going to ask you to be a little bit brief about that. Does your station, do you have a way of kind of measuring that impact?
It's a very, very informal and very unscientific. We are trying to establish, though, a telephone system so that people can call in. We're not there yet, but I think that might provide a gauge of who's listening, and that we don't have now. Right now, it's very informal. Folks I run into, hey, man, I didn't know you had a radio station, and so forth. Let me quickly tell you this. On Sunday, the Black Lives Matter group here had a parade. And when I heard it from the studio, I went out to my car and tracked it down and approached the leaders of this Black Lives demonstration and invited them to come on and do a show. And they say we will, and so we do that. If folks think you're worthwhile, they'll want to come on your radio station. If they think you're not worth a hoot, then they don't want to come.
Daniel, in 30 seconds.
So we usually measure it by phone calls, text messages, or if we have community meetings or events, we measure it by how many people actually show up or call in just to get more information about such events.
Facebook too. Sometimes
Facebook.
People respond
Social media
with Facebook comments.
Well, unfortunately, I didn't get to the question that I kind of wanted to sum this whole hour up with, is what ways could we better network? So maybe we'll save that one for the next community radio regional roundtable. So I want to thank you all for participating in this. I found this discussion very, very interesting. I want to thank my panelists, Keyssh Datts, the associate producer of Hear Us Out, Youth Radio on WPPM 106.5 FM in Philadelphia, Harmon Carey, founder of WHGE-LP FM in Wilmington, Delaware, Daniel Arista, station assistant at Radio CATA, 102.5 FM in Bridgeton, and Tom Casetta, the station manager at G-Town Radio, 92.9 FM here in Philadelphia. Thank you all for participating.
Thank you for having us.
Thank you for having us.
Thank you for having us.